The morning sun cast long shadows across New Haven's agricultural districts when the alien ships first appeared in their sky. Farmer Lee Jinwoo dropped his harvesting tools and shielded his eyes, watching three massive vessels descend through the clouds like metallic whales breaking the surface of an ocean. The ships were unlike anything humans had ever built, sleek obsidian hulls that seemed to absorb light itself, with pulsing blue veins running along their surfaces like living arteries. Children playing in the schoolyard of Pine Valley Elementary stopped their games to point at the sky. Teacher Cho Yuna quickly herded them inside, her heart racing as she counted heads. 32 students, all present. She locked the classroom doors and activated the emergency communication system that connected every settlement across New Haven. The Vorthak Empire had been expanding across the galaxy for millennia, their grey-skinned, towering figures standing nearly 8 feet tall with 4 arms and eyes that glowed like amber gems. They moved with mechanical precision, their technology so advanced it seemed like magic to most species they encountered. Every world they claimed followed the same pattern: initial contact, evaluation, integration, compliance. Ambassador Kethlos materialized in the central plaza of Haven City through a shimmering transport beam. His ceremonial armor gleamed with embedded crystals that translated his words into perfect human languages. Local shopkeeper Park Min-soo watched from his bakery window as the alien figure surveyed the modest buildings around him with what appeared to be mild disappointment. Governor Kim Dao-jin received the formal transmission in his office above the town hall. The holographic message projected Kethlos speaking in measured, authoritative tones. Behind the alien ambassador, massive war machines moved across distant battlefields, worlds that had refused imperial guidance and paid the price. The footage showed cities turned to glass, populations relocated to work camps, entire civilizations reduced to footnotes in imperial records. The demands were delivered with bureaucratic efficiency. All human military assets would be surrendered immediately. Population growth would be limited to sustainable levels as determined by imperial ecologists. Advanced technologies, including faster-than-light communication and manufacturing, would be transferred to imperial control. Human leadership would be replaced by appointed governors who understood proper galactic order. Dao Jin studied the photos covering his office walls, images of harvest festivals where families shared meals under paper lanterns, children racing through meadows of blue wheat unique to New Haven, elderly couples sitting on porches they had built with their own hands. His own daughter, So Young, smiled at him from a frame on his desk. Her gap-toothed grin captured the day she lost her first tooth and placed it under her pillow for the tooth fairy. The Colony Council meeting took place in the old community center, its wooden floors creaking under the weight of 300 concerned citizens. Elder Park Hyemin had lived through New Haven's founding, arriving as a young woman when the planet was nothing but endless grasslands and crystal-clear rivers. Her weathered hands folded in her lap as Dao Jin read the imperial ultimatum aloud. Engineer Choi Sung-ho raised his hand. What happens to our children's schools? The message mentions population restrictions. His voice carried the worry of a father whose twin boys had just started learning to read. The Empire provides education appropriate to each species' capabilities, Dao Jin read from the official documentation. Human children will be trained for suitable occupations within the imperial framework. The room fell silent. Baker Park. Min-soo thought of his daughter, teaching her little brother to make bread, their flower-covered faces bright with laughter. Dr. Kim Nara remembered the moment she delivered the colony's first baby, tiny Yu Jae-min, whose mother had cried with joy at holding new life under alien stars. Elder Park. Hye-min stood slowly, her voice steady despite her age. My granddaughter started school last week. She came home talking about wanting to be an explorer like her great-grandmother, to find new worlds where humans could build homes among the stars. She paused, looking around the room at faces she had known for decades. This empire would take that dream and replace it with compliance. The Vorthak had given them 30 days to accept integration, confident in their assessment of human capabilities. Their databases showed a species barely 2 centuries into space travel, with no significant military assets, and a tendency toward emotional decision-making that led to tactical disadvantages. Every preliminary scan suggested humans would follow. The standard pattern: initial resistance followed by inevitable acceptance of imperial superiority. What their analysis failed to capture was the conversation happening in homes across New Haven that night, as parents tucked children into beds and whispered promises that tomorrow would still belong to human dreams, human hopes, and human determination to protect what they had built together among the stars. 23 days had passed since the ultimatum, and Commander Velthok paced the bridge of his flagship Dominion's Edge like a caged predator. The massive Vorthak war vessel stretched nearly 2 kilometers from bow to stern, its hull bristling with enough firepower to level continents. Through the observation deck's crystalline windows, the blue-green marble of New Haven hung peacefully, in space, seemingly unaware of the death that orbited above it. "These humans test our patience," Velthok growled to his tactical officer, Sub-Commander Zeknal. His forearms gestured at the holographic displays showing New Haven's orbital space. "Their response should have arrived days ago. Instead, they send us requests for extensions, pleas for negotiation, emotional appeals about their families." Zeknal's amber eyes flickered as he consulted his datapad. "Intelligence reports minimal military activity on the surface, Commander. Their largest vessel appears to be a cargo transport modified for asteroid mining. Their orbital installations show no weapon signatures." The bridge hummed with activity as dozens of Vorthak officers monitored communications, tracked ship movements, and analyzed the human colony's defenses. The Empire's war machines were marvels of engineering. Sleek fighters that could dance between asteroids while unleashing devastating energy beams, massive carriers that birthed swarms of automated attack drones, and the crown jewel, the Dominion's Edge itself, equipped with planet-cracking orbital bombardment systems. Velthok studied the tactical display with growing frustration. His promotion to fleet commander had come after successfully subjugating the Kelrani system, where 3 heavily armed worlds had surrendered within hours of witnessing a demonstration on their outermost moon. The explosion had been visible from their home planets, a clear message about the cost of resistance. "Show me this orbital station again," he commanded. The hologram shifted to display Harmony Station, a modest facility orbiting the gas giant Titan VII. The structure looked like a silver flower floating in space, with solar panels spread like petals and observation domes clustered around a central hub. Energy readings showed standard life support systems, basic communication arrays, and what appeared to be scientific equipment for atmospheric research. Sub-Commander Zeknal highlighted the station's specifications. 300 human life signs detected, minimal shielding, no defensive systems identified. Intelligence classifies it as a Category 7 research outpost, essentially defenseless. Velthok's mandibles clicked with satisfaction. Perfect. The Kelrani had required the destruction of an entire military base to understand imperial power. These humans would learn the same lesson from the loss of a simple research station. Quick, clean, unmistakably imperial in its efficiency. "Prepare the orbital bombardment array," he ordered. "Target the station. Full power discharge, I want. Nothing left but particles." The Dominion's Edge began its deadly transformation. Weapon ports along the hull opened like mechanical eyes, revealing the glowing cores of plasma cannons that could melt through asteroid belts. The ship's reactor hummed louder as massive amounts of energy built up in the charging chambers. Other vessels in the fleet moved into supporting positions, their own weapons powered but held in reserve. What Commander Velthok didn't know was that Harmony Station had become something special in the 3 months since its construction. Principal Kim Ye-jin had proposed the idea during a colony council meeting. Why not give their children a chance to learn about space while actually living among the stars? The floating classroom had been designed as New Haven's most ambitious educational project. Young Lee Sora pressed her face against the observation dome's transparent aluminum, watching Titan VII's swirling storms paint beautiful patterns in shades of orange and gold. She had just mastered reading simple sentences, and her teacher had encouraged her to write a story about what it felt like to live in space. Her notebook contained careful sentences about stars that wink like friendly eyes and planets that dance around the sun like children playing. In the engineering section, 16-year-old Choi Min-ho worked alongside his father, who had volunteered as a chaperone for the semester. Together they maintained the station's life support systems, the boy learning about atmospheric processors and gravity generators. Min-ho dreamed of designing ships that could carry families to new worlds, vessels that would be homes rather than just transportation. Teacher Park Soo-jin gathered her class of 8-year-olds in the observation lounge for their daily astronomy lesson. The children's faces lit up as she pointed out the constellation patterns visible from their unique orbital position. They sang songs about rocket ships and brave explorers, their voices echoing through the station's corridors like music from a different, more innocent universe. The bombardment lasted exactly 4 minutes and 17 seconds. Velthok watched from his command chair as brilliant lances of plasma energy crossed the void between his fleet and the tiny station. The first impact overwhelmed Harmony Station's basic shields instantly. The second blast tore through the hull, like paper. By the third strike, the station was coming apart, its beautiful solar panels spinning away like broken wings. When the energy barrage finally ceased, nothing remained but expanding clouds of superheated gas and twisted metal fragments. Velthok nodded with grim satisfaction. The demonstration had been flawless, a perfect example of imperial precision and power. He had no way of knowing that he had just made the greatest tactical error in Vorthak military history. The quantum communication array at Lunar Station received the transmission at 14:32 Earth Standard Time. The automated systems processed the incoming data, tagged it as priority emergency, and immediately forwarded it to every major command center across human space. Within minutes, the horrifying truth of what had happened at Harmony Station began spreading through humanity's networks like wildfire. Captain Park Jun-seo was reviewing defense deployment schedules in the Earth Defense Corps command bunker when his aide burst through the security doors. Lieutenant Kim Da-hai's face was pale as she handed him the encrypted datapad. "Sir, there's been an incident at New Haven. Multiple casualties reported." Jun-seo's coffee cup slipped from his fingers as he scrolled through the victim manifest. Among the names and photos of the murdered children, he found the face that made his world stop turning. Lee Jae-ho, age 14, visiting New Haven as part of an interplanetary student exchange program. His sister's boy, the nephew who sent him drawings of spaceships and asked endless questions about life among the stars. The command center's main display screens flickered to life, showing the debris field where Harmony Station had existed just hours before. Automated rescue drones combed through the wreckage, their scanners finding nothing but twisted metal and crystallized atmosphere. No survivors, no bodies to recover. 300 lives erased from existence in less than 5 minutes. Across the solar system, the reaction was immediate and unprecedented. Dr. Kim Yoo-jin abandoned her theoretical research into advanced propulsion systems and redirected her entire laboratory toward weaponization protocols. Her team of brilliant scientists had been working on clean energy solutions and faster-than-light communication. Now they stared at photos of murdered children and began calculating missile trajectories and explosive yields. "We've been thinking. Too small," Dr. Kim told her assembled researchers in the secure laboratory beneath Seoul's new science district. "Every breakthrough we've made, every discovery we've celebrated, it's all been preparation for this moment. We just didn't know it yet." Her assistant, engineer Yoo Min-jung, pulled up holographic displays showing their latest antimatter containment systems. Originally designed for peaceful power generation, the technology could be modified into the most devastating weapons humanity had ever conceived. "How many ships can we retrofit with these systems, Doctor?" "All of them," Kim replied, her voice carrying a cold determination that her colleagues had never heard before. "Every cargo hauler, every mining vessel, every passenger liner. If it can fly, it can carry our answer to the Vorthak Empire." Admiral Song Hai-won received the news while inspecting the orbital shipyards above Mars. The massive construction facilities had been building exploration vessels and colony ships, symbols of humanity's peaceful expansion into the galaxy. She, watched the workers outside her observation window, thousands of humans in environmental suits, welding hull plates and installing navigation systems for journeys to distant worlds. "Change of plans," she announced to the shipyard supervisors via communication link. "All construction priorities are now classified under Emergency Protocol 7. Every vessel currently under construction gets retrofitted for military specifications. I want weapons systems, armor plating, and shielding that can withstand anything the Empire can throw at us." The Admiral's personal aide, Commander Choi Hae-Soo, pulled up the deployment schedules for humanity's scattered fleet elements. Trading vessels visiting distant colonies, exploration ships mapping new star systems, diplomatic transports carrying ambassadors to alien worlds, all of them would need to be recalled and prepared for war. What the Vorthak intelligence networks detected was an increase in human communications traffic, which their analysis computers categorized as typical grief responses. They had seen similar patterns when other species lost population centers to Imperial demonstrations. Increased data transmissions, emotional broadcasts, requests for information about loved ones, all standard reactions that would fade within. A few weeks as acceptance set in, they failed to understand that human grief transformed into something far more dangerous than sorrow. In homes across Earth and every human colony, families gathered around communication screens to watch the memorial broadcasts. Parents held their children closer and made quiet promises about the future. Veterans of old Earth conflicts contacted former comrades and spoke in code about mobilization schedules. On New Haven, Elder Park Hyemin stood in the ruins of Governor Dao Jin's office. The man had collapsed upon receiving confirmation of the massacre, his heart unable to bear the weight of so many lost lives under his protection. Now she faced the terrible responsibility of leading a colony that had lost its children to alien violence. The elderly woman activated the quantum communication array with shaking hands. Her message to Earth was brief, but it carried the weight of humanity's collective anguish. "Our children are gone. Remember them." Across human space, the Chai response was unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. Species throughout the Empire's history had reacted to demonstrations of Imperial power with fear, submission, or desperate last stands. Humans reacted with something entirely different, a cold, calculating fury that treated the murder of any human child as a declaration of war against the entire species. Construction workers became weapons engineers, scientists became strategists, peaceful cargo pilots became the vanguard of humanity's revenge. The Empire had made a fatal miscalculation in assuming that humans would respond like every other conquered species. They had never encountered a civilization that considered every child sacred, every family connected, every loss a wound that would heal only with justice. The awakening had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same. The first disappearance happened along the trade route between Vorthak Station Keth 7 and the mining colonies of the outer reaches. Patrol vessel Imperial Duty simply vanished from all sensors during what should have been a routine border inspection. No distress calls, no debris field, no trace of the ship or its crew of 47 Vorthak soldiers. Command assumed equipment. Failure or perhaps an encounter with a spatial anomaly. The second incident occurred 3 weeks later. Supply Convoy Alpha 9, carrying food and medical supplies to Imperial garrison worlds, disappeared while passing through the supposedly empty Kepler-Oort sector. 6 massive cargo vessels and their escort of 12 patrol ships gone without a trace. This time, Imperial Command began paying attention. By the 4th month, the pattern became impossible to ignore. Vorthak ships were vanishing across 17 different sectors, always in areas previously considered safe Imperial space. The missing vessels ranged from single scout ships to entire supply fleets, but the result was always the same: complete disappearance, no survivors, no evidence. Commander Velthok received the emergency briefing aboard his flagship while patrolling the Titan 7 system, the same region where he had demonstrated Imperial power 8 months earlier. His tactical officer, Sub-Commander Zeknal, projected holographic maps showing the locations of every disappearance. "The pattern suggests coordinated attacks," Zeknal reported, his 4 arms manipulating the display controls. But our sensors detect no enemy fleet movements, no staging areas, no supply lines. It's as if our ships are being hunted by ghosts. Velthok studied the data with growing unease. The missing ships had been equipped with the Empire's most advanced sensor arrays and communication systems. For them to vanish so completely suggested an enemy capability that Imperial intelligence had never encountered. Increase patrol frequency in all affected sectors. Deploy hunter-killer squadrons. Whatever is responsible for this will be found and eliminated. 3 days later, Velthok's own cruiser, Retribution's Call, dropped out of hyperspace near the abandoned mining station at Kepler Prime. The facility had been constructed by a species the Empire had absorbed decades ago, its automated systems still extracting rare metals from the asteroid field. It should have been a perfect location for a routine stop to gather intelligence about the mysterious disappearances. The attack came from everywhere and nowhere at once. What appeared to be ordinary asteroids suddenly revealed themselves as camouflaged human ships, their hulls covered in adaptive armor that matched the surrounding rock formations. The cargo vessel, Lee So-Ra, unleashed a barrage of plasma torpedoes that had been designed for deep space mining, but modified to punch through Imperial shields like tissue paper. Velthok watched in horror as his ship's defensive systems failed, against weapons they had never been programmed to recognize. The humans hadn't built traditional warships. They had turned every piece of civilian equipment into instruments of destruction. Mining lasers became precision cutting beams that sliced through armor plating. Cargo containers housed swarms of autonomous attack drones. Even communication arrays had been weaponized to jam Imperial systems and broadcast that haunting message. The stealth fighter, Choi Min-ho, emerged from the shadow of a nearby asteroid, its hull invisible to Vorthak. Sensors until the moment it opened fire. The small craft moved with impossible agility, its pilot executing maneuvers that should have killed any biological crew member. Velthok realized too late that humans had modified themselves as well as their machines, using acceleration suits and neural interfaces that allowed them to survive forces that would crush a Vorthak warrior. "Emergency jump to hyperspace," Velthok commanded. But his navigation officer reported that something was jamming their jump drives. The humans had surrounded them with devices that created localized space-time distortions, trapping Imperial ships like insects in amber. Subcommander Zekanal activated the ship's emergency beacon, hoping to alert other Imperial vessels to their location. Instead, every communication channel filled with the same message, repeated in perfect Vorthak by the voice of a human child. "For the children of Harmony Station, we remember, we do not forgive." The battle lasted 18 minutes. When it ended, the Retribution's Call drifted powerless among the asteroids, its crew unconscious from some kind of neural weapon that left them alive but helpless. The human ships vanished as quickly as they had appeared, leaving behind only that endless broadcast and evidence of tactical capabilities that Imperial war colleges had never imagined. Captain Park. Jun Seo stood on the bridge of the converted cargo hauler Song Ji-ho, named for a 10-year-old boy who had loved drawing pictures of friendly aliens. The ship's hull still bore the faded logos of its former life as a peaceful trading vessel, but now it carried enough firepower to level a small moon. His crew of 43 volunteers included former cargo pilots, mining engineers, and school teachers who had learned to operate military-grade weapon systems. "Target secured, Captain," reported Weapons Officer Kim Soo-jin, a former kindergarten teacher whose own daughter had died aboard Harmony Station. "Imperial crew is unconscious but alive. Ship systems are disabled. What are your orders?" Jun Seo looked at the photos mounted beside his command station, images of every child murdered at Harmony Station, including his nephew Lee Jae-ho. "Download their navigation databases and intelligence files. Then let them drift. When they wake up, they'll have a message to carry back to their empire." The human fleet had become something unprecedented in galactic history, a force that fought not for territory or resources, but for justice and remembrance. Every ship bore the name of a murdered child. Every weapon had been blessed in ceremonies that honored the dead. Every pilot carried photos of the innocents they had failed to protect, The Empire's mighty war machines, designed to crush conventional military forces, found themselves helpless against an enemy that refused to fight by established rules. The humans struck from shadows, vanished like smoke, and left behind only the promise that justice would follow every Imperial ship until the debt was paid in full. The fall of the Vorthak Empire began not with a single decisive battle, but with the methodical dismantling of 2,000 years of Imperial might. Human fleets moved through space like surgical instruments, each strike calculated to maximum effect. They didn't waste resources on meaningless destruction. Every target served a purpose in the greater campaign of justice. The fortress world of Keth Prime had stood unconquered for 8 centuries, its massive orbital defense platforms bristling with enough firepower to vaporize entire fleets. The Vorthak had considered it impregnable, a symbol of Imperial permanence that would endure long after the stars themselves burned out. But the humans didn't assault the station directly. Instead, Captain Lee Min-jun's engineering corps spent 3 weeks carefully placing shaped charges throughout the asteroid field that surrounded Keth Prime. When the explosives detonated, they created a cascade of debris that overwhelmed the defense platform's targeting systems. The mighty fortress found itself blind and defenseless as human ships emerged from the chaos like avenging angels. Admiral Song Hai-won watched the surrender from the bridge of her flagship, Harmony's Promise, a vessel built from the salvaged metal of destroyed Imperial ships. The massive carrier had once been 3 separate Vorthak cruisers, their hulls welded together and transformed into something entirely new. Its hangar bays housed hundreds of fighters, each one flown by a pilot, who carried the names of murdered children painted on their cockpit walls. Imperial Command Center, Keth Prime. You have 1 hour to evacuate all civilian personnel. Admiral Song broadcast across all frequencies. After that, we begin dismantling every weapon system, every communication array, every symbol of Imperial power that enabled the massacre of innocents. The Vorthak evacuation proceeded in stunned silence. Imperial officers who had commanded star systems found themselves loading personal belongings onto cargo ships while human soldiers watched with expressions of cold professionalism. There was no hatred in their eyes, no desire for cruel revenge, only the implacable determination of people who had seen their children murdered and would not rest until justice was complete. Ambassador Kethlos huddled in the cramped confines of an escape pod, its life support systems failing as he fled through the wreckage of what had once been the Empire's outer territories. His diplomatic immunity meant nothing now. The humans had classified him as a war criminal for his role in delivering the ultimatum that had led to Harmony Station's destruction. Through the pod's cracked viewport, he watched human salvage ships methodically breaking down the remains of Imperial Battle Station Omega-7. The massive structure had been capable of sterilizing entire planets, its planet-cracking weapons representing the ultimate expression of Vorthak military philosophy. Now it was being reduced to component parts, its weapon systems disabled, and its crew evacuated to face trial for crimes against sentient beings. The ambassador's communication console crackled with reports from across Imperial space. System after system had fallen to human forces, not through overwhelming firepower, but through tactical brilliance that turned the Empire's own strengths against it. The humans had studied Vorthak military doctrine for months, identifying every weakness, every assumption, every blind spot that centuries of unchallenged dominance had created. On the bridge of the assault carrier Park Hee-min's Courage, Commander Yu Tae-ho coordinated the final phase of the campaign. His vessel had been named for the elderly colony leader, who had become a symbol of human resilience, and its crew of 2,000 volunteers included former teachers, farmers, and merchants who had learned to operate military equipment with deadly efficiency. "Sir, we're receiving surrender transmissions from the last 3 Imperial strongholds," reported Communications Officer Kim So-young. "They're requesting terms for capitulation." Commander Yu studied the tactical displays showing the Empire's final defensive positions. Each stronghold represented decades of military construction, fortified positions that had been designed to withstand sieges lasting years. But their Vorthak defenders had lost the will to fight, demoralized by witnessing the systematic destruction of everything they had believed was invincible. "Standard terms," Yu replied. "Complete disarmament, surrender of all war criminals for trial, and evacuation of civilian populations. Any attempt to resist will result in the same fate as their predecessors." The surrender ceremony took place in orbit around New Haven, where the nightmare had begun 18 months earlier. Elder Park Hai-min, now 94, and confined to a mobility chair, appeared via hologram on the bridge of Admiral Song's flagship. Her weathered face carried the weight of loss, but also the satisfaction of seeing justice finally served. "The last Imperial fleet is requesting permission to approach," reported the fleet communications officer. 12 massive Vorthak vessels moved slowly through space, their weapon systems powered down, and their shields lowered in the universal gesture of surrender. Admiral Song activated the fleet-wide communication system, her words broadcast to every human ship and every Imperial vessel within range. "We never wanted this war. Humanity sought only to live in peace, to raise our children under distant stars, to build homes where love could flourish. But when you murdered our innocence, when you targeted the defenseless and called it demonstration, you left us no choice but to respond with the full measure of our capabilities." The formal surrender documents were transmitted electronically, ending the Vorthak Empire's reign of terror across 17 sectors of space. War crimes tribunals would follow, with Imperial commanders facing judgment for their actions against civilian populations throughout their long history of conquest. But the true victory was not measured in conquered territories or surrendered fleets. It was found in the memorial garden that grew where Harmony Station had once orbited, tended by children born after the war, young humans who would grow up in a galaxy where everyone understood the terrible price of threatening humanity's young. The lesson had been written in fire across the stars. Humans were capable of extraordinary compassion, but they were equally capable of extraordinary wrath when their children were threatened. The galaxy would remember both truths for generations to come, or the end.